Today we're going to talk about how to make running effortless, and we're going to focus specifically on running form. I'm Lindsey from CoachPerry.com, where we help you get stronger, faster, fitter. So the first thing we're going to unpack a little bit is biomechanics, and it's very important that we are clear on this, that we are all different shapes and different sizes, and that is going to impact on what is perfect for each one of us as an individual. Some people have got short legs, some people have got long legs, some people are tall, some people are bigger than other people, and all of these things do have an impact on what is the best and most economical running form for you as an individual. There are a couple of key pointers that can help you to improve what you are doing slightly and make you much more comfortable when you run. I always try and tell my athletes that these are the things that you must focus on, particularly when you're tired. Because as you get tired, that's when we're the most likely not to do them. But if we do focus on doing them when you're tired, you'll be amazing how that instantly translates into 1, 2, 3 seconds per kilometer or per mile, but much more importantly, how much better you feel doing those miles and realize that actually if I just hold my form, I know I'm tired, but I am expending less energy. So what are those things? And for that, I like to use a pen so that you can visualize exactly what you want to do. So we've got your head, your hips, and your ankles. And what most people do when they hear people saying you've got to run with a forward lean, you've got to get onto your toes, is that in response to that, we bend from the waist, okay? And that's not what we want. And so we do want a very slight forward lean, almost upright. I like to tell people to string themselves out or make yourself feel tall, okay? So why do we talk about a very slight forward lean and being tall? Is because if we focus on just one or the other, we tend to lean too far forward, which invariably makes you lean from the waist. And if we focus only on running tall, people tend to lean right back, and then that causes you to put all your weight on your heels. So we want to imagine that we are tall and very slightly forward. That's it. The next step to that running form is that people tend to exaggerate certain things, I guess, to make the point. We do not want to forefoot strike. In essence, you almost want to try and bring your whole foot down at the same time. So again, I like to try and get people to focus on a triangle, and that triangle is between your big toe, your pinky toe, and just in front of the heel. That is the triangle. And if you can try and focus on bringing the triangle down and bringing it down underneath your body, you're already 90% of the way there. So we've got nice and tall, slight forward lean, and we're bringing that foot down right underneath the body, focusing on that triangle. The last part of focusing on running form is quite interesting, and it's different to when I hear most people talking about biomechanics, and that is that I then like people to focus on the push off and flicking your foot out behind you. And the reason you want to do that is because our body is so good at keying off left versus right. A lot of coaches try to get you to focus on what they call the knee drive, because the knee drive is quite important on how you place your foot and where you place your foot. But the problem is that if we focus on the knee drive, we tend to push up and around makes us lean back again. So I don't like getting people to focus on the knee drive. I like you to focus on the back. So if we are pushing off and flicking the foot out, that gives us great extension in the hip. And as soon as you get extension in the hip, you're going to get a brilliant knee drive off the front. And when you get a great knee drive off the front, you almost get an automatic snap back, which pulls your leg back towards being underneath your body, so that you can then just focus on putting down the triangle, big toe, little toe, back of the heel. So just a quick summary there. You're a pen. You want to be in a nice straight line. You want to focus on being tall, stretched out, very slight forward lean, foot coming down right underneath the body. And we're going to focus on that push out and flicking out that toe behind you so that then creates a beautiful hip extension and helps you with your knee drive out the front. If you can focus on those 4 things, especially when you're getting tired, that is going to help you run with much, much less effort. Part of what makes this work is being strong enough to maintain that tall position with a slight forward lean. And to talk you through the strength component is Devlin.
Lindsey has discussed some of the biomechanics to improve your running form. One thing that ties into that biomechanics is how strong are you? And that is where the strength training aspect is a very big aspect in improving or helping with running form. Strength training I refer to as resistance type training. So whether we're using resistance bands, whether we're using weights, whether we're using body weight exercises, are all some form of resistance training or strength training, and definitely has a role in any of those 3 modalities for you to be able to get some sort of benefit from. How does it affect your biomechanics, and why do we need to really focus on strength training? The strength training, remember, every time you land on a foot strike or a running stride rather, think about each step as its own individual jump and the kind of muscle contractions that are happening with each of those steps or strides that you are taking in a run. Now, a big factor that could potentially lead to injury is an eccentric muscle contraction. Now, just quickly, what is an eccentric muscle contraction? If I put my fingers together as if you imagine these were the muscle fibers in your muscles, an eccentric contraction is generally the landing of a running stride, and it's where your muscle lengthens so there's less muscle fibers in contact with each other. It's generally more of a vulnerable or a weaker muscle contraction and has a higher risk of injury. Now, if we are able to do some good strength training around that, it does help to strengthen each of those muscles and make sure more muscle fibers can become in contact and stronger when we are going through that eccentric type loading. It also then does allow a stronger base to push off. So whether that's our core, our hip flexors, our quads, our hamstrings, the entire chain really, if we're stronger and our body posture and position is stronger, each of our strides and push off becomes a lot stronger as well, which again, you can start to see how that ties into the biomechanical aspects of our running form, keeping ourselves upright and keeping ourselves moving forward and our energy all going in a forward direction rather than us collapsing through a training run and then we're losing or wasting energy in the wrong direction. We talk about injury prevention with strength training. It has a very big contributing factor to your performance, and those two tie in very well together. If you're looking for a little bit of direction and advice in terms of what strength training to do or what kind of exercises to do, click on the link on screen now to download a free strength plan we've put together that will help you with your strength training.
We often get asked the question about whether or not it's useful to get something like a Gait analysis done to analyze your running technique or your running form. And yes, it is useful. I think you can get some benefit from that. The area or the time where I think it is most useful is perhaps if you're really struggling with a lot of injuries and you've tried all sorts of other aspects, strength and conditioning, checking your shoes and so on. And so that can be an aspect to look at because it can give you a lot of information about how you are running. From there, a lot of people would then recommend that you go into something like gait retraining. So to retrain how you are running. Personally, and Dev would have touched on this or has touched on this a little bit, is that we would rather recommend that you work on the strength and conditioning side of it because your running form will naturally change. But essentially looking at a Gait analysis does give you a lot of information. If you're trying to change your pair of shoes or you're struggling to find the right sort of pair of shoes, it is a very, very useful tool to help you determine some aspects of your running form.
The next thing to unpack is stride length, because when we are starting to shift through the gears and changing the intensities that we are running at, the two key components of that are stride length and stride frequency. Shona is going to unpack stride frequency for you in a minute. I just want to talk about stride length. A lot of athletes run at exactly the same stride length no matter what speed they are running at. And that really compromises your ability to go through a broad range of running. And in particular, it causes you problems when we get to the point where we want to be able to run easy enough to get the most out of our easy runs. And so you do need to learn how to develop that stride length. In particular, if we are going to hold the form that we spoke about earlier in the video, when you're running quite slowly but maintaining your stride length, it's very difficult to bring your leg down right underneath your body. And what tends to happen is that you are overstriding on the slow ends and therefore doing quite an excessive heel stride. So as we slow down, we are going to have a shorter and shorter stride length, and as we speed up, we're going to have a longer and longer stride length.
Lindsey's gone through the biomechanics of running, and one of the things that we look at with the biomechanics of running is cadence. Many wearable devices can measure your cadence, and we often get asked this question about how important is cadence? What should my cadence be? Is there an ideal sort of number? And there has been some work around determining what an ideal cadence should be or can be, but really those studies have been done on elite runners. And so very often when recreational runners are trying to determine what should my cadence be, they look at these numbers that are coming up and they go, okay, well, should I be reaching 180 SPM in my cadence or shouldn't I? And essentially, because those studies have been done on elites, my advice is to very often say to recreational runners, don't try and focus on that number specifically. Your running gait is specific to you, and it's got a lot of intricacies down to your strength and conditioning and your genetics and your muscle form and your strength. And so the recommendation is don't try and just hit a number. Rather work and be efficient in your running, because if you're constantly trying to change your cadence, you're not actually working on being efficient in running. You're concentrating on something else, and as you start getting tired, that's just going to go out the window anyways.
Thanks for dropping in. Hope you got a ton of value out of this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.